it is an absolutely gorgeous day here in Idaho, as you can tell. And it's just, I just got to be outside. It's just so beautiful. So how's it where you are?
It's been raining for about 4 or 5 days off and on. The weatherman's wrong. I'm I'm just kind of doing everything I can. If it stops raining, I'll go work a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
that's not good for roofing, man. Rain and roofing don't mix very well.
it's good money sometimes, but but anyway, yeah, it's been raining here. I can't wait till the weather breaks. We had like a week of 80-degree weather, and then it just disappeared and went back down to 40. So
Yeah, it was like super snowy and yucky here. I mean, it snowed all the way like April 13th, and all of a sudden it turned like summer. So I'm like, yeah, thanks for the shock, but I'm not complaining.
yeah,
So anyway, man, it's been a minute. I mean, usually we do these with two other guys, Mike Lewis and Antoine Brown. Unfortunately, they're not able to make it tonight. And Sean and I, we're just like, you know what? There's a lot on our heart, a lot of things that we've been thinking about, that we've been talking about, not only on Sean's TikTok, but I've been talking to a lot of men about. And so we're like, you know what, let's do a live together and let's get a little real. And I think one of the big things that I've been thinking a lot about is that husbands just and men in general, I think we have societally created this expectation that if we're the provider in the family, we stop investing in the relationship. It's like I go to work and that's everything I bring to the table. Well, that's not everything that you need to bring to the table. And in this, it creates an emotional disconnect. In some cases, it creates an emotional abuse with your significant other. And then we're wondering why we're not happy in our relationship.
yeah. I think it comes down to from talking to a lot of people lately on TikTok and stuff. I noticed that like a lot of guys are just like exhausted, maybe from work or just life, and they feel tired and they feel like they can't, like the whole like I work is kind of like an excuse just to like chill or something.
Yeah.
And the problem is that we know, that that's not all there is. Some people believe there is, and what I've been noticing, my younger cousin works for me, and he's not married. He doesn't have a girlfriend or anything, and we do roofing together every day. And a lot of our conversation, driving and coming home from work, are these crazy podcasts that he catches up on YouTube, and he tells me about all these things that some of these guys talk about. And we talk about it a lot. And I haven't seen too much of the podcast. He'll show me little clips here and there and tell me about stuff. But I kind of like sort of realize that a lot of people are getting bombarded with a lot of like really bad advice for men that's out there. And kind of this whole, there's a lot of YouTube channels and stuff for men to like pick up women and meet women and stuff. But when it comes to like marriage and stuff, there's not really good advice out there. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of guys get stuck with this like, girlfriend, boyfriend advice, which doesn't work in a marriage long term. And they're kind of stuck with that. And when they're tired, they revert to that. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think the challenge, honestly, is I've had several conversations with a number of my kids, who are in very good relationships, right? And we talk about whether or not they're going to get married or not, right? And my one son, he's all in, he's ready to get married, but his significant other is like, I'm not ready for it, right? And as I'm talking to them, I can understand, especially given the experiences that these kids go through with their parents divorcing and separating, and verbal abuse and emotional abuse that they see and witness between their parents. They're like, what does marriage really bring to the table? I'm already committed and loving you. So why do we need to get married? And I can see the perspective, right? And whereas my son, Judy and I have been married 34 years and we're very committed. I mean, we work at our relationship, right? But I also I can understand why these kids are going, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with that because they haven't seen it emulated well.
Yeah, I see that too. I actually talked to quite a few people who don't want to get married, especially guys. They're like, marriage doesn't benefit men because they think they're gonna. There's this idea out there that young guys believe. My cousin kind of believes it, and he's 40 years old. But it's kind of like this idea that women are out to get your money. They want to marry you and then divorce you and take you for everything you got. And it's kind of like, I don't think she cares about your 20 bucks an hour, man. Like,
Yeah, no.
not like she's striking the lottery or something. But that idea is out there that it's like a fear that guys have that they're going to get taken, or a fear that they're going to get cheated on. And, it is a legitimate thing to a point, I guess, but I don't think there's a lot of women out there that are just looking to marry somebody to divorce them, unless you're like Tiger Woods or something. But I don't know. I feel like there are ideas like that out there. And when especially guys get bombarded with all these different fears, and some of them might not be pretty well thought through, they just roll with it, and they have a fear of commitment,
What I think one of the challenges too is that these kids, they're looking at relationships and they're like, how do we make a relationship, a committed relationship work? And I love how open you are about your and your wife's relationship, because there was a time in you guys' relationship where it was not pretty. In fact, you were almost ready to go, I'm not sure if we're going to make it. And she probably was feeling the same way. So how did you guys work through that and get to where you are today? Because now you guys are happy, you're invested in each other, you love each other, you're committed. So how did you work through that really ugly period to get to where you are today?
Well, let's put it this way. When you fail and you fail and you fail, at some point you got to hit your knees, man. I don't, I have, I had a fear of losing my family because I didn't know how to be a dad, because I never really grew up in a household where things did work out. And I feel like it took a lot of time and maturity and a lot of sacrifices on my part, sacrifices on my wife's part, for us to really understand each other. But I think that after all the mistakes I made, my wife wanted to see if I was in it to win it. And when I really made some sacrifices for her, for our relationship, and started to really wrap my mind around everything that she does do, um, and kind of let go of the whole like trying to justify my position all the time, defending myself all the time, and trying to take responsibility as a dad for my house, then things started to change. And I'm still still learning. I have bad habits, but things are getting a lot better, and I feel like um, there's no magic moment or anything. It's just maturity. Over time you learn, you make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes, and uh,
No, I like the word that you used there that I don't think is used enough in our society, especially when it comes to relationships, and that's sacrifice, right? I often think about, when you're first dating and connecting, we quote sacrifice a lot, right? We go out of our way to spend time with the girl that we're pursuing. We go out of our way to take her out on dinner. We go out of our way to do special things for her, to talk to her, to visit with her. We stay up late into the evening, even though we got to get up at 5 in the morning to go work, right? And you're in those early days, you were working, you were going to school, probably maybe even doing both of those at the same time. So the idea that you were working then versus now, that hasn't changed. The
Yeah.
only thing that has changed is your mentality around sacrificing and proving that you are worthy of the commitment that she's wanting to give you. And somewhere in the process, we lose that idea of serving and loving and investing in the relationship. And it comes down to just tasks. You do this, I do that, and we're never doing anything for ourselves. And it's like Judy and I were having a great conversation in our podcast, Into the Gray, that Judy and I host together. And she asked me, what is the most important thing in our family? And I said, you. Immediately. I didn't pause. There was no, you can find a clip on it. I mean, it was immediately you. And it kind of surprised her. Right. And she's like, how can a person? I'm like, no, you got to understand that if I'm not committed to you and our relationship and serving and loving and making time for you, building you up, everything else in our if you and I aren't right, then nothing in the family is right. And
Yeah.
so you are my priority, not the kids. And I know a lot of women will disagree with that, right? I see them that all the time. The kids come first, comes first. And I 100% agree with that. Yes, the kids take priority, but you and your spouse have to take supreme priority, because if you two aren't right, the family's not right.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I get that. And the thing is too is if you don't have peace in the house and there's unrest in the house, everything's off kilter. Everything's off balance. And when it comes to husband and wife having peace, like my goal as a dad used to be like make as much money as possible, provide for my family. Like that was what my mindset was. Now my goal is to have peace in the house. I don't care if I make it to work, don't make it to work. There needs to be peace here. And sometimes I screw that up. And it is difficult to keep the peace when you're having issues, when you have resentments in the house, when you have arguments going on over stupid stuff. It's an issue. So
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think a lot of I think, and let's be honest, right? Um I think a lot of times we talk about the ideal of marriage and family, but we don't talk about the work that is required to make a family strong, right? And it's not always easy. It's not always easy. But, if you're committed to the relationship, you're going to learn how to forgive. You're going to learn how to serve and put them first. One things that I've noticed as I reflect back on, myself, is that I've had to recognize that there are character flaws in me that I've had to shed, like being impatient, being a little short to the fuse, on the temperance stuff. And sometimes the way, maybe not necessarily what I say, but how I say it can be cutting to the heart, right? And I've realized that I need to shed those character flaws and replace them with characteristics of kindness, of empathy, of patience, of love, of goodness, of encouragement, right? And I think a lot of times we always look at the other person and go, well, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, and I'm not being fulfilled. Well, when you start focusing on how you can improve your side of the relationship, all of a sudden you start going, wow, you know what? She really is a blessing in my life.
I gotta say something about what you said, dude. Um, so there's two young guys. They're younger than me. They're not that young, but two gentlemen on TikTok that I've been talking to. The one guy, I went back and forth on videos. I went back and forth on direct messaging for like 2 to 3 months. And the idea that this gentleman had was that you sift through the you sift through the people until you find the right one. And this guy is, I don't know if he was married, but he has a daughter. She's 13 years old. And he was going to bat with me about finding the right person. And if you don't find the right person, you just move, you stop wasting your time and move on to the next one. And I just feel like if my wife would have did that for me, I don't know where I would be. Like we worked together to become better people for each other and for our kids. And so I don't agree with the whole idea that you just sift through people. And I learned from the conversations and talking to my cousin, like I was saying, that these guys are picking this stuff up from these podcasts. Like you date a woman, you don't like her, you just get rid of her. No questions asked, like just whatever. And I think it speaks volumes for what God wants us to do, which is court with somebody. If we're going to be with them, make the commitment and just do it. And you're right, there's a lot of work there that people don't talk about. In fact, my pastor, my church, shared with me that he tries to talk people out of getting married because he's like, look, this is going to happen. These things could happen. He lays down all the cons of marriage. And the thing is that I was really thinking about what are the positive things about being married. There's a lot of positive things that aren't shared either. There's a lot of good things that aren't shared. And it seems like for me, I'm always talking about the work. I'm always talking about the mindset you have to get through this or that. But there's definitely the joy of, all of the discipline. Like you said, you had to change yourself. There's things about yourself that you had to work on to become a better person. All of those disciplines that we pick up as men to be better men, it's almost like joy to be able to go through all that and have success at that. And there's a lot of things there. I'm a much different person than I was 20 years ago till I am today. And the thing is, we can thank our wives for kind of pushing us to be better people. And I just made a video. You might have saw it. There's a long video about all the things that my wife did in the house. And I feel like I can't even really scratch the surface of who I have become because of my wife wanted to be a better person. And I have a lot of the time going kicking and screaming into that, but did it and, made a lot of sacrifices with things that I used to like to do compared to what I do now, but all for the good. And I feel like there isn't enough understanding that things that are hard for you, things that are difficult for you, things that might cause some suffering are sometimes good for you. Like, we look at exercise, we go through a little bit of pain to get stronger. And the same way with our, just being good men, there's pains that we have to go through to become better. And a lot of people aren't willing to take a look. They look at the shallow version of what life is. I have this, I have a car, I'm a good guy because I have a job. I'm a cool guy because I have a nice car. They don't look at the whole discipline part of it and who you should push yourself to be a better person. A lot of people ain't trying to look at that side of life. And I think when you're married, our wives definitely want us to be better people. And there's some pain there. There's some suffering there. There's some work there. But when you get through it and you get to the other side of it, it's like, it's great.
Yeah, I love being married. I mean, it's, I often talk to my brothers and stuff. I'm like, I would not want to be single. I just would not want to be single. But I also have reaped the benefits of working towards a relationship, right? And I think a lot of times we have, especially in marriage, especially if you have the fairy tale thing, it's like, oh, you meet Prince Charming or you meet the princess, you kiss her and you live happily ever after. The reality is that you meet Prince Charming and Princess Beautiful, And the reality is that once you say I do, the work just begins. I mean, the journey begins of not only becoming a better person, but you're working to become one as a couple. And I think a lot of couples miss that aspect that you're bringing two different people, two different experiences, two different family upbringings and traditions. And now you're trying to figure out how to blend those and make them into something beautiful. It's like the yin and yang symbol, right? They're two individuals, but they come together and they're refined and they become something beautiful. And I just tell my kids, I'm like, dude, there's just a different level in your relationship when you're actually married. It's not the paper. And I think that's a problem. A lot of, we have this story that, oh, that it's just a piece of paper that we're signing. Well, no, it's more than that. It's actually covenanting and committing and dedicating your life to somebody else, not only as 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 an individual, but to become one as a couple, right? And Judy and I are very purposeful in working at our relationship. I mean, we have date night, we read together, we play together, we work out together. I mean, and that's one of the beauties of having a good relationship, that they don't talk about marriage. I have a permanent partner. I mean, Judy and I love to travel. We love to work out. We love to play games. In fact, our family is extremely competitive when it comes to games. I mean, nothing, nothing about our game night is calm. It's loud. It's boisterous. It's competitive. It's like a lot of trash talking, and a couple of the kids like to cheat, but it makes it fun, right? And it's trying to build and create. And I think something like you said, a lot of times we don't talk about the beauty of being married. You don't talk about the beauty of having a family. Now, the danger is the 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 counter argument to that. I think is a lot of times we talk about that, and some people can be discouraged. They're like,
Yeah.
well, that hasn't been my experience. Man, I had a crappy dad. I had mom and dads that yelled at each other. They even threw stuff at each other. I mean, some of them were never home. Some were abusive or addictive. So how can I go from that to this? And I've had a lot of men that have really good relationships. They just said, you know what? I'm just going to not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we for me, I grew up in a situation where I'm like, I don't want it to be like that. You know what I mean? So I have a little bit of direction, I guess, but I get a kick out of hanging around with guys like you. One of my best friends, his family's like Mennonite, and they're very, very nice people that are very organized and very calm. Their kids are good. They play games. I pick up a lot from just the way they operate. And you see um, sometimes the spiritual battle going on in people's lives. That's a whole nother aspect to this whole thing. But I feel like um, if we choose to say, okay, um, I'm going to keep trying to be a better person for my family. If we make that decision as men, I don't think that we're going to fail. I think the failure happens when we decide that I did enough, she's wrong. We start pointing out all the flaws of our wife and everything. And I've had quite a few men actually come be like, you need to make videos about, pointing out women's flaws instead of men. And I'm like, I'm not really here to point flaws. I think that pointing out a woman's flaws is going to blow up in your face every time.
Yeah.
So I just feel like as men, we have to understand that our life is going to be a journey of learning and growing and trying to be a better person and having patience. Like you said, I got a short fuse sometimes too, and I have learned to be more patient. I've learned to be more calm. I've learned when to walk away from a situation. The situation's becoming like, emotional, elevated, and I'm like, I'm done. We've learned to get away from that instead of saying, okay, this is a huge mistake, thinking that you're going to fix the situation while it's happening. That never.
Yeah.
So, but I've learned a couple of things like that, so.
Yeah, and that's a tough one, right? Because when you're in the middle of it, especially guys, you want to go into control mode and fix it mode, and that comes across as domineering and overbearing, right? Instead of being kind and gentle and loving. And I think it's no, it's a process, right? Of learning, of growing. It's interesting because I think a lot of times, especially on your TikToks, I see them. The guys go, "How come you're not talking about what the women are doing wrong?" Well, here's what I've learned is that usually people are having challenges in their relationships because their expectations aren't in line with what's happening in their family.
Yeah.
And so they're getting frustrated and angry and they're pointing the finger outward instead of going, what do I need to change? What do I need to become? And it's easy to accusingly blame the finger. It's your fault. You're not doing this, instead of going, you know what? In this moment, I was a little hot. I was a little impatient. You know what? I came home and my wife was in the kitchen and I went and sat in the bathroom on TikTok for an extra 35 minutes, 45 minutes, instead of getting to business and coming in and going, hey, sweetheart, how can I help?
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up something interesting too. I feel like sometimes us men are problem solvers. Maybe this is part of the problem. I'm just throwing this out there. I think we're problem solvers. I think that when we see a girl we like, it's not a problem, but it's like we want to get with her. We want to talk to her. We want to get her flowers. We want to do everything we possibly can to get her attention. And then we do that. And then when we get together, then we get married. And it seems like in our mind, like marriage is the end of the road. Now it's time to chill. And when we go to work and come home and we're not allowed to chill, our wife wants more and more. Like men are a lot of times, like I used to get upset. I'm like, well, you should be happy. We got everything we need. And it's like a problem solving type of thing. It's like, well, we already got everything. Those problems are solved. And we're always trying to like calm our wives down and be like, no, everything's good. And they're like, no, it's not good. And it's just like power struggle then. So.
Well, and it's not good because their emotional needs are not being met. Physical needs are being met, but emotional needs are not. And I think a lot of times we as men are totally oblivious to that, except when we're in hot pursuit. When we're in hot pursuit, we talk about being, oh, yeah, I'll listen to you, I'll walk with you, right? But then once we've gotten to a certain point, we think that that's enough, instead of realizing that that emotional journey, that emotional connection continues. In fact, it almost needs to be doubled down on. I mean, you have to continually reassure and rebuild and develop a listening ear. And I think a lot of times, if you really look at it, in the beginning of the relationship, you would go out to dinner, you'd go for a walk, and she would talk and talk and talk. You guys would get, you drop her off the door, you'd call on the phone, and you'd still be talking, right? But somewhere we lose that emotional connection, and women especially need that. We need it, but I think a lot of times, like you said, we're so worried about fixing the problem, and we're worried about being in pursuit of a goal or a dream or building something, that we neglect the most important aspect of our relationship, and that's the emotional side of things.
Yeah. I was working with my friend the one day and we were talking, and he was having an employee who wasn't really working as good as he could. And he had a conversation with him about it. And I overheard something he said that really stuck with me. And he goes, the reason why you're not performing well and you're not, excited about your job is because you don't have your head in the game. You're not, when you came here and started here, you wanted to do good and had your mind set on work. Now work is like this secondary thing, and you kind of put it off to the side and you're playing with your phone. You're not, and I think it stuck with me because I'm thinking, man, that's what happens to us guys a lot of times in our marriage. We don't have our head in the game. I talk to so many women, Jody, that um, some men too, but mostly women who their husbands have pretty much shut down when they get home. They go home, they go in the garage and drink. They go play video games. They go do stuff to chill because they're tired, you know? And I think it's nothing wrong with doing that once in a while, maybe, or something. But when it's every single day and your wife is getting angry, there's a problem. And I think the problem is that, just like my friend said, you don't got your head in the game. You lost the connection with your wife. You lost the conversation, and now you're just putting it off to the side, putting your marriage off to the side. And that's a big problem. And I see it a lot of the time. And you'll see all these women that are going, signing up for divorce. They kind of ring the same tone every time. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't talk to me anymore. I've been here 25 years and he just doesn't even talk to me. And at some point, when she decides that it's over, there probably ain't much coming back from it. I mean, it would take a miracle, for a woman to change her mind after being in a marriage for so long, trying and trying and trying and just being neglected and neglected. And sometimes what I see is when the woman starts talking about divorce and actually goes through with the process of getting the papers filled out, a lot of guys try to like turn it around. And I've seen a couple of women like be like, okay, and take that chance, and then they revert right back to it like a month or two later, and then it's done. And it's
Yeah.
pretty sad because if we would just get it through our thick skulls to remember to just have the conversation with our wife, to remember to keep our head in the game with our marriage and make a decision. For me personally, I've had to make a decision that I need to take responsibility for my end of the marriage. I need to take responsibility as the leader of the house to try to keep the peace, try to stay calm, try not to get angry. My wife's upset about something, she's having a day or something. I try to be the calm one. And that has slowly developed into a good thing in my house where my children, they have no problem talking to me now. Back in the day when I was the one getting hot-headed, they wouldn't really connect with me. And now that I'm like calm, my kids connect with me. And now my wife, when I'm calm and she is having like a hard time or having, her friend or whatever, and it's having a rough day or something, she is able to admit when she's wrong because there's stability now. And I'm not saying it's me, it's the Lord, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that um, to turn things around, to be able to have peace. Because what I used to do is react to the situation and then try to force my wife to calm down. You're mad for no reason. Be quiet, and get all angry about everything she's doing. That having that attitude destroys everything. And I see on TikTok over and over again guys that have that whole like mentality, like she owes me. I'm in a conversation with a young man right now who we have been back and forth talking, and this is a different guy, what I mentioned before. This guy has this idea in his head that men are being disrespected and we need to like tell these women what's up. And I'm like, ain't gonna work, bro. like like you could go ahead and try it, ain't gonna work. But the thing is that I'm trying to explain to him, when you take responsibility for your actions and be the leader and that you do the right thing, then when your wife is wrong, for me, my wife feels that conviction when she's wrong now. I don't have to tell her. She just knows. I don't have to get upset about it. She just knows. And it might not work itself out right away, but it'll work itself out. And vice versa. If I get angry, we have this like peace in the house where if I get angry, I know I was wrong. The kids know I was wrong. My wife knows I was wrong. My turn to say sorry. You know what I mean? But in general, the idea of keeping things on an even keel for me is kind of the goal of my house, I guess you could say. So
Yeah. No, and I love that, right? Um it's being respectful, it's giving people space to work through their own emotional situation, because we all know, every day we can be thrown a big curveball, and some days they really test our patience, and they test, our ability to control our temper, and are also, being hurt. I mean, being hurt is really legitimate. And one of the things that you said really hit me. I think there are a lot of women that are living in marriages where they feel completely alone.
Yeah.
That in their yes, they have a husband, yes, they have a beautiful home, yes, they have kids, but they feel like they are not walking in purpose and in unity with their husband.
There's a
And
term
they're
for that.
yearning for that. And that's what they're saying. He doesn't love me. He doesn't connect with me. He doesn't talk to me. Dude, if you're isolating your beautiful wife because you're not spending time and energy on her, don't wake up one day when she's going, you don't love me, you don't talk to me, you don't appreciate me, because you haven't done the things to make her feel that way every single day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a term that I learned for that. It's called a single married wife. And ever since I heard the term, I see it all the time now. And, I feel bad for those situations. And I feel bad for the husband, especially because he probably doesn't know why things are falling apart. And he's pretty much just shut down at this point and is just over trying. And it's really sad. And, like, I know that there's a lot of people that I talk to that, ladies especially, who will admit that they've done a lot of wrong things to their husband, or they probably didn't treat him right. But I feel like it comes down to this like power struggle, and each couple is trying to, or each part of the couple is trying to outdo each other at some point, and then they just get sick of it and just go their separate ways.
Yeah.
I've seen every single day, Jody, tons of people saying, like, I've been married 25 years. My husband hasn't said two words to me in years, things like that. And I'm like, wow, is this actually real? And when you see it over and over and over again, thousands of comments of people going through this kind of stuff, it's just like, wow, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
no wonder there's so much like mental health issues and kids with problems. And I mean, I was a kid that grew up in a situation where, my parents were already divorced, but I was with my stepdad, I was with my mom, with other guys, I was with my dad, with other women, and it was just always crazy. But I can only imagine what it's like for a young kid living in a house with resentment his whole life and just going through all of this like depressing, worldly stuff like all the time. I feel bad. And I don't know. I feel like, so do you know a lady on TikTok who her channel's called Happy Spouse Happy House? Did you ever see her
I've
before?
seen her, but I haven't connected really.
So she has an interesting channel. She talks about women's side of the marriage where they fail and stuff like that, and it's kind of interesting. But I wanted to say real quick, because of what I do and the kind of the nature of my videos and stuff, that I don't think that women are just perfect and men are not, and I'm picking on men or something. It's not that at all. It's just that I feel sorry for women and children that are in these situations who I believe, and I know from experience in my house, my wife will kind of follow along with the tone that I set. And if I set a tone of ignoring her and just doing whatever I want, she's probably just going to do the same thing. We've probably been in that before. But I just think that um, there needs to be a little bit of understanding that us men have a lot of power. We have a lot of influence. And if we just made a couple of changes about kind of the stuff you're talking about, just put a little bit of focus on our wife. I'm not the best romance guy in the world like you, Jody, but I mean, I'm
What?
something I
And
have to work on. But I'm just saying that um, if we would just try, our wives will see us trying, and it will
well,
matter. You know?
and I don't even think you need to be this big romantic Romeo, right? I think it's as simple as, like, my wife, she has a break coming up here in about 30 minutes, right? She's going to have a 10-minute break. She works from home. She's going to come out and she's going to go, do you want to go for a walk? We go for a walk. We talk, she vents about work and the frustration, or she talks about the great things or whatever, right? But it's doing those little things that make a difference. Just like when you were dating, you did little things to make her feel special, to make her feel loved, like you were invested, right? And somewhere we as men have to recapture the pursuit of our lady. And it just because you're married doesn't mean that pursuit is done. It just means that every day you're reassuring and you're rebuilding. And sometimes you're deconstructing aspects of yourself or even your own relationship and refortifying it with new pillars that strengthen you and move you forward in unity. And that's really what your wife is looking for. She's wants somebody that she can build with. You think about back when you were dating, you were so excited. I want to do this. I want to pursue this career. She expressed the same things. I want to have a family. I want to do these, and let's do it together. Somewhere we lose that together and we
So
go, oh, I'm going to work. I'm going to do this. You're going to do that, instead of going, how do we do this together?
yeah, I wanted to ask you a question about that because you brought up a really interesting thing. Um, and I've seen this a few times. So maybe the husband has failed at paying attention to his wife, and one day he tries to, hey, you want to go out on a date? Hey, let's say, and he tries to pick up the pieces and try to rekindle things, but she has become sour to a point where when he tries to do that, she just like thinks it's like a joke. And that is a situation that I've seen a few times, and I don't think it's all the time, but a few times. And how do you think a man is to work his way out of that? Um, and I know that's a hard question
No,
for you.
I like that you said work your way out of it, right? Because I think this is the challenge that many husbands and wife find themselves in. They have gone years without connecting and doing things together and going on dates. And so it's years of neglect that all of a sudden they wake up and they're strangers to each other. And all of a sudden, one of them goes, you know what? I really like what we had. We used to be great together. How do we get back to that? The challenge is if I come to that point and I come to you and I say, look, sweetheart, I want to make things right. I want to turn a new leaf. There's a level of skepticism because you have a trail of disappointment. You have
Yeah.
a trail, you have a track record of of not fulfilling your promises. And so it is going to take you as long, if not longer, to build out of that. And it is step by step, moment by moment, day by day of going, hey, sweetheart, I just want to let you know maybe you're not ready to go out on a date on Friday, but I want you to know that I appreciate that you did this. I want you to know when I walk in the house and I see you smile, that really makes my day. I love the way you care for our children, and building on those little things a step at a time. It is going to take work, and sometimes you're going to take two steps forward and then something's going to happen and they're going to, yeah, see, I told you, you said you're going to turn a new leaf, and look, we're back to the same old thing. And in that moment you have to go, look, sweetheart, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to build out of this. So let me try it again tomorrow and we'll keep building. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to go, wow, our relationship's good. It's not going to be a moment. You're just going to go, all of a sudden, you're going to wake up and go, wow, things are, I'm really liking who we're becoming again.
So I think, sort of to answer my own question in a way, some ladies think that you're just trying to put a band-aid on it so you can sleep with them or something, and that's a problem that some guys, they only come to their wife when they want some, you know what I mean? They only really talk to them when that happens. And I actually know of a couple right now who is getting a divorce because of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And anyway, but I think, like, for me, I had to do that. I had to work my way out of it. And in my experience of that, my wife didn't want me to just try to be nice to her so that me and her could get along. She wanted me to actually care about her. And so
Yes.
I had to sit and contemplate, why do I appreciate this woman? What all has she done for me? And I remember I used to go on walks and try to think about the things that I was grateful for. And when I started to put my wife in on that list and really think about the things that I was grateful for her about, it really changed the way I treated her, and it changed the way that I wanted to treat her. And I had to go through some, like, that time where I'm just wrong, and get through that, and things slowly started to get better. And and I still, like I said, I'm still young. I still have a lot to work on, I think, with my wife and stuff. But we have come a long way, Jody, and it has been a ride and a half. But I really want to help younger guys that are like where I was, or had the mindset I was. Because the worst thing in the world, man, is having every you're living the American dream. Everything's good. It should be good, and you and your wife ain't getting along. That is the worst thing ever, because it's like the one person that you should be happy with and enjoying life. When there's something not right there, it is, for me, it's just like the worst thing ever. I hated living that life, and I hated it. And my wife would sometimes bring up divorce, and I'm just like, I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for you. Like, I want to stay together, and I want to work things out. And like, when you get divorce thrown in your face enough times, and you start really looking at it, um, maybe for some people that looks like a good option. I don't know. I mean, we've been in situations where we were fighting and arguing and swearing at each other in front of the kids and getting out of control, to a point that it was just like not good. And we went and saw our pastor for marriage counseling a few times, and he's like, we told him about fighting in front of the kids. We're thinking about divorce, and he's like, so you don't like fighting in front of your kids? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, then don't do it. And we're like, okay, why did we think of that? Uh, but I'm just saying, like, when you feel helpless to, like, a spiritual sort of, I felt like there was like an oppression over our house that we just couldn't break out of. It was really, really frustrating. And I feel like, to go from those times when we were like about to divorce each other, and somehow just like grit our teeth and stayed together and tried and tried and tried. Now, it was so worth it. And even going through the hard time, it's like when you have a lot of rain, there's a nice rainbow. You know what I mean? It's more
Yeah.
enjoyable.
No,
We
and I love that. Yeah, I invite you and the listeners to go and listen to the latest podcast Judy and I did together. It's called Into the Gray is the podcast. Obviously, I have this one, Father's Fire, but Judy and I, we've been talking about the gray areas of life. And one of the things that we talked about in the last time, we actually were talking very similar to this discussion about relationships. And one of the things that it really bothers me when Judy and I are not in accord, when things are not right, when we're not in sync. It really bothers my soul. And it's like, like I was explaining in the podcast, it's like, we're learning how to create harmony in music, right? She's got the treble, I got the bass, and we're trying to figure out how to create this beautiful music together. And every once in a while, we hit a wrong note, or we hit a wrong chord. We hit a situation that tests our commitment, our patience, our tolerance, our empathy, right? And it's sour, and we're like, but that doesn't mean that you can't step back and go, all right, what went wrong? Why is this off key? And how can we bring it into harmony? And I think that's one of the beautiful challenges of a marriage, is learning how to create harmony, and, in your words, peace, so that you're walking in unity and love and in purpose. And that creates something not only beautiful in you, but it also creates something beautiful in your family. So,
Amen.
but
Yeah.
anyway, man, I want to thank you so much for taking the time, dude. We're almost at an hour here. We're just having a great conversation. I know it's a little late. You're East Coast. I'm West Coast, and I just appreciate you taking the time. Always willing to have a conversation. And dude, I really am inspired by your TikToks, your messages. It gives me a lot to think about, and I just appreciate what you're trying to do for men and ultimately families.
Thank you, brother. I mean, my wife loves it because she will hold me accountable to my videos, so she don't mind one bit. Somebody asked me, "How's your wife appreciate that?" And I'm like thinking about how I'm going to explain how she loves it. At first, my wife was like, "You're being weird. What's up with that?" And then after a while, so I had two gentlemen over time who were in the process of divorce, had papers out. Wife moved out of the house with both of the kids, or both of the gentlemen's wives moved out with the kids. And from talking to them a little bit, praying with them, they dug themselves out of that hole. I just spoke to the one guy recently. His marriage is doing well. And the last time I talked to the other guy, his marriage is doing well now. And I'm not going to say it was me. But it's the idea of like everything that we talked about, getting it in there and getting that process started, so.
No, that's good, man.
I
Well, I appreciate you, man. You really are doing a good work, and I appreciate your spirit. I appreciate your passion. Tell your wife thank you for giving us this time to visit together.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
guys, tuning
Oh,
in. We did lose TikTok because my phone overheated, so that's what happened. But that's all good. So that's what I get for trying to do it outside, enjoying this nice spring, almost summer-like day. But thank you so much, guys that are tuning in. Thank you for watching and listening. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll check you same time, same bat channel just next week, right here on Father's Fire. See ya. Thanks, brother.
cool.